There's a structure and order in marriage, and in the structure and order of marriage, both husband and wife have their appointed roles to carry forward the purpose of the relationship that exists as a new family under the marital union. And the husband is the appointed servant of the marriage to make provision for the family. His role is to provide and be the source of provision. He is the producer. He is the generator for the family. When a man and a woman are married, they have now formed a corporation, beloved. And the husband is the CEO of that corporation called family. Therefore, he is the head of the corporation, not in the monarchical sense of a king or having controlling power like a tyrant, but rather he executes the will of the two founding members, being himself and wife, being the chairman of the board of the trustees of this new living entity called family in the institution of marriage. So when God says in Genesis chapter 3 and verse 16, unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire, pay attention to that word, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. Pay attention to that word as well. It's simply identifying, God is identifying that within a woman there is a longing desire within her nature to have the security of leadership in her life from a man. And the word rule is not to be understood as boss, but rather leader, beloved. Therefore, when it says in Ephesians chapter 5 verse 21 onwards to 33, it says, submitting yourselves one to another in the fear of God. So both husband and wives are to submit themselves one to another. So therefore there is equal submission, there is equal power sharing, but there's going to be the deference to one as the established leader carrying forward the purpose of the relationship. Therefore, you must make sure that your relationship has a goal, it has a purpose. And it continues in verse 22, wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands as unto the Lord, for the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, and he is the Savior of the body. Therefore, as the church is subject unto Christ, so let the wives be to their own husbands in everything. And in this modern society that we live in, people believe that this gives free rein to tyrannical power, tyrannical rule of men over women in the marital relationship, and therefore many women are resistant to that word, to that term called submission. But when you read the Bible closely, you will understand the role and the office of husband, and you will understand the role and the office of wife. And the word submission is used within the context of the purpose of the relationship, the purpose of the family, beloved. So wives are subject, or they give deference to their husbands in matters pertaining to the advancement, the well-being, and the security of the marriage, of the home, and of the family, because they have agreed to make him the executor of the will of the family, to keep the family on course in fulfilling its purpose in this age, in this society, in this life, because God has not commanded the man to rule over the woman as if she is his chattel. Marriage is not to be an institution of slavery, beloved, but a clear leader has to be defined, and that leader, according to Christ in Matthew chapter 23 verse 10 to 12, is to understand this all important principle and concept. And it says in verse 10, neither be ye called masters, for one is your master, even Christ. But he that is greatest among you shall be your servant. And whosoever shall exalt himself shall be abased, and he that shall humble himself shall be exalted. So when the wife submits to the husband, she is actually submitting to her servant. She is submitting to the person who has sworn before God and man to forever serve her and operate in her best interest in this life. And often, sometimes, beloved, we do not even recognize the very things that are for our best self-interest or our best collective interest. So the husband operates in a very objective position to be servant to the interests of his wife and of his family. And the book of Luke in chapter 22 from verse 25 onwards to 26 continues, and he said unto them, the kings of the Gentiles exercise lordship over them, and they that exercise authority upon them are called benefactors. But ye shall not be so. So a husband is not to exercise lordship over his wife, because marriage is not in an institution of slavery. And it continues, but he that is greatest among you, let him be as the younger. And so therefore then the husband must occupy a position also of humility. Let him be as the younger, and he that is chief as he that doth serve. So the husband becomes the servant of the marriage, beloved, the provider for the home, and he is responsible for maintaining the family. And what we may not understand, beloved, is that the word husband literally means champion. The word husband literally means servant, and a champion is a representative of the state for its defense in times of crisis, or an ambassador in times of peace. So the husband is the appointed ambassador of the marital institution, the chairman of the board of trustees, the CEO, who is being invested with power, with seat and authority to objectively make sure that the marriage fulfills its purpose in this age, in this world, in this society, in this life. So the meanings of the word champion now, beloved, are advocate, proponent, promoter. So the husband, as champion of the marriage, he's the advocate for the marriage, the proponent for the marriage, the promoter of the marriage and the family, the proposer, the supporter, the standard bearer of the family, the torch bearer of the family, the flag bearer of the family, the defender, the protector, the upholder, the backer, the exponent, the patron, the sponsor, the prime mover of the family, the pleader for, campaigner for, propagandist for, lobbyist for, fighter for, battler for, crusader for the family, apologist for the family, the apostle of the family, the evangelist of the family, the missionary of the family. Nowhere in the definition, the meaning, the understanding of what the word husband is or what the champion is does it mean Lord and God and subduer of the individuality of the members of the family. No, it means champion and servant. So marriage, beloved, is a spiritual entity, and as an entity representing the family, it must have goals. And as the champion of the marriage, the advocate and representative of the marriage, the husband must lead, and lead objectively and recognize that he is the servant of the family. And this is why Ephesians continues to say in verse 25 of chapter 5, husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church. And what did he do? He gave himself for it. So Christ gave himself for the church because he loved the church. If you love your wife, brothers, if you love your family, you give yourself for your family. You recognize that you are a servant to your family. And in verse 28 of Ephesians chapter 5, it continues, so ought men to love their wives as their own bodies. He that loveth his wife loveth himself. For no man ever yet hated his own flesh, but nourisheth and cherisheth it, even as the Lord the church. For we are members of his body, of his flesh, and of his bones. For this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall be joined unto his wife, and they two shall be one flesh. This is a great mystery, but I speak concerning Christ and the church. Nevertheless, let every one of you in particular so love his wife even as himself, and the wife see that she reverence her husband. Your wife will respect you, which is what the word reverence means, because she sees that you are her servant, that you are the servant of the family, that you exist to promote and to champion the cause of your family. And for those husbands that believe that their wives are just to unanimously and arbitrarily submit themselves to them, even unto their individuality, because their name is husband, 1 Peter chapter 3 verse 7 breaks that spirit of tyranny. If you are an honest soul, my brother, it says in verse 7 of 1 Peter chapter 3, likewise ye husbands, dwell with them according to knowledge, giving honor unto the wife as unto the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers be not hindered. So if you are oppressing your wife, my brother, if you are oppressing your wives, brethren, in your relationship, in your marriage, in your family, in your home, God is not going to hear your prayers, and the wrath of God will be against you because you are misrepresenting Christ. Understand your position today, for you are to be a champion. You are to champion the cause of family in this world, in this age, in this life. This is your position. This is your power. This is your responsibility. This is the Word of Life with Andre Knight.